Hi, this is the Between Us channel. If you've been here before, I'm glad to see you again. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping by. Let's start today's story.
Last Thursday evening, I came home earlier than usual and stumbled upon something I never expected. My wife was planning to stage a breakup with me. Not because she wanted to end our relationship, but because her friends convinced her it would be a fun little test to see how much I love her. The house was unusually quiet, but I could hear faint voices coming from the living room. She was talking on speakerphone. I immediately recognized those voices. They were her three closest friends, the same ones who had been filling her head with harmful advice for months. I stopped in the hallway, out of sight, but close enough to hear every word. What I heard chilled me to the bone. Just tell him you need some time to think about your future together, one of them said. Men never appreciate what they have until they think they might lose it. Exactly, another chimed in. My cousin did the same thing with her boyfriend last year. He begged her to stay and even bought her a new car the following week. Then my wife's voice sounded hesitant but curious. But what if he just agrees? What if he doesn't fight for me? Trust me, dear, no man will let his wife leave without a fight. He'll cry, he'll swear that everything will change. You'll see it for yourself. I clenched my jaw. They were treating our marriage like some kind of reality show experiment. But the most incredibly painful aspect was that my own beloved wife was actually sitting there and listening to everything they said.
This weekend, make it emotional, but don't overdo it. Just tell him you've been thinking, and you're not sure if you're happy anymore. My fists tightened. They were encouraging her to shake the foundation of our marriage, for fun, and she was actually considering it. Remember, another friend added with a chuckle, stay serious. Don't let on that it's a test. Let him panic a little, then watch how hard he tries to win you back. Keep track of everything. This is going to be such good drama.
This is the moment that becomes quite alarming, because when your marriage is called a drama, it means that for someone it's entertainment, not actual reality.
That was it. I'd heard enough. I backed away and slipped out the front door, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to confront them right then and there, but I paused. A better idea was forming. If my wife wanted to play games with our relationship, if she wanted to test me, then she was about to learn something important about the man she married. I wasn't the type to beg. I wasn't going to jump through hoops for entertainment.
Sometimes the strongest response is calmness, because it breaks the script more powerfully than even tears or shouting ever could. Because this moment shows that manipulation simply doesn't work on us at all.
I got in my car and drove around for a while, thinking. When I returned about 20 minutes later, her friends were gone. She was in the kitchen, cooking like nothing had happened. "Hey, honey, you're home early," she said with a kiss on the cheek. It felt fake now, so forced. "Traffic was light today," I replied, studying her face. She was clearly anxious, nervously twisting a kitchen towel in her hands. At dinner, she barely spoke, probably running through whatever script her friends had handed her. I acted normal, kept the conversation light. But inside, I was already crafting my response. That night in bed, she couldn't settle. I could feel her squirming beside me, her mind racing. I knew she was going to follow through. Her friends wouldn't let her back out. They never do. But here's the thing none of them understood. Not her, and definitely not her self-proclaimed relationship expert friends. I don't play games with people I love, and I don't tolerate anyone trying to play games with me. If she wanted to test whether I'd fight for our marriage, she was about to learn something important. I don't fight to keep someone who isn't sure they want to stay. I don't chase. I don't beg. And I definitely don't perform for anyone's entertainment. Saturday was coming, and I was ready. But my response wasn't going to look anything like what she or her friends imagined. They expected tears, panic, promises, Instead, they were about to meet a man who knew his worth and refused to be manipulated. The test was coming, but the outcome wasn't going to be what she expected. Saturday morning arrived right on schedule. So did her performance. I was in the garage organizing tools when she appeared in the doorway. Her posture was stiff, like she'd practiced this moment in front of the mirror. "We need to talk," she said, using that serious tone her friends had probably coached her on. I looked up from the workbench, calm and steady. "Sure. What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, bracing herself. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about our marriage, and I'm not sure I'm happy anymore." I nodded slowly, as if hearing this for the first time. "Okay. What specifically is making you feel unhappy?" That question clearly threw her off. She'd probably expected panic or instant self-blame. "It's just, I feel like we're stuck in a routine. I don't know if this is what I want for the rest of my life. I think I need some space to figure things out." "Space," I repeated, setting the wrench down. "What kind of space?" "Maybe we should take a break," she said carefully. "Spend some time apart so I can think clearly." I wiped my hands on a rag and leaned against the workbench. "How long of a break?" She hesitated. I don't know. A few weeks, maybe a month." "A month," I said, nodding. "That sounds reasonable. When do you want to start?"
There are certain phrases that we simply cannot say just like that, even if it's just a bluff. Because these phrases, they prove that the marriage will never be the same as it was before.
Her mouth opened slightly. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. You're okay with this?" I shrugged. "You said you need space. If that's what you need, I'm not going to stop you. I won't force you to stay in a marriage that doesn't make you happy." The color drained from her face. "But don't you want to talk about it? Try to work things out?" "What's there to work out?" I said evenly. "You told me you're unhappy and want space. I'm respecting that." I saw panic flash in her eyes. This was supposed to be the moment where I fought for her, where I promised to change everything. "So, you're just giving up on us?" "I'm respecting your decision," I said. "You're an adult. If you want space, you get space." I walked past her toward the house. "I'll move my things into the guest room today, so you can have the master bedroom. We should also figure out how to split the bills during this break." Wait, she called after me. "You're moving to the guest room right now?" "Well, yeah," I said. "You said you wanted space. I assumed that included physical space." She followed me inside, completely flustered now. "I didn't mean immediately. I thought we'd talk through the details." "The details seem pretty clear," I said calmly. "You want a break from our marriage to decide if you want to be with me. The sooner we start, the sooner you'll have your answer." I opened the dresser and began pulling out clothes, slow and methodical. She stood in the doorway, watching, clearly struggling to regain control. "Don't you have any questions?" she asked. "Any feelings about this?" I paused and looked her straight in the eyes. "Of course I have feelings," I said. "But you've made it clear that those feelings aren't enough for you to be happy in this marriage. So what's the point in talking about them?" "That's not what I meant," she replied quickly. "You said you weren't sure if you wanted to spend the rest of your life with me. That's not exactly vague." Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, probably one of her friends checking in to see how the test was going. The timing almost made me laugh. "I'm gonna call the guys," I said casually. "See if anyone wants to grab dinner tonight." She blinked. "Dinner?" "Well, we're on a break, right? Figured we should both start getting used to being single again." "Single," she repeated, barely audible. "That's what a break is, isn't it?" I continued. "Time apart to live life separately, to figure things out." I could see her mind spinning, clearly trying to backpedal without blowing the whole cover. I think you're misunderstanding what I meant by a break. Am I? I said. Because it sounds like you want the freedom to decide if you still want to be married. That's basically separation. She sat down on the edge of the bed, clearly unsettled, watching me pack my things with growing unease. Where are you going for dinner? Not sure yet. Might check out that new steakhouse downtown. Haven't gone out with the guys in months. Truthfully, I had no plans, but I didn't need any. The image of me out enjoying the single life was already haunting her, and that was enough. You seem awfully calm about all this, she said, her voice cracking a bit. I stopped packing and looked at her, letting a hint of concern cross my face. Would you prefer I be upset? I asked. Because I can be, if that would make you feel better about your decision. No, that's not, she stammered. I just thought you'd have more of a reaction. This is my reaction, I said gently, giving you exactly what you asked for. Isn't that what you wanted? She didn't respond, just watched me in silence as I kept folding clothes into a duffel bag. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she didn't even glance at it. The test was officially underway, but the outcome wasn't what they'd planned. Instead of a desperate husband begging to be chosen, she was watching her marriage quietly unravel, and all on her terms. By Sunday night, the panic had fully set in. I'd gone out with friends as promised, stayed out late, and came home acting like it was just another normal night. She was still awake, waiting, something she never did when we were supposedly doing great. How was your night? She asked, trying to sound casual. Great, I said honestly. Really great. I forgot how fun it is to just be out without worrying about checking in or making sure someone else is okay. Her jaw tightened. What do you mean by that? I mean, we're on a break, so I don't have to check in, don't have to prioritize anyone else's happiness. It's freeing. She didn't reply, but the look on her face said everything. She was starting to see just how real this test had become. Her phone buzzed all weekend, no doubt her friends waiting for updates, wanting to hear how her husband was breaking down and groveling. But that story never came. Monday morning, I was making coffee when she walked in wearing her robe. She looked like she hadn't slept. I've been thinking about what I said on Saturday, she began carefully. Oh, good, I replied, pouring my coffee. Sounds like the break is doing its job. Maybe I was too quick to say all that. Maybe we should try counseling instead. I turned to face her. Counseling? But you said you weren't sure if you wanted to spend your life with me. What would we even work on in counseling? I think I was just stressed, she said, grasping for ground. Work has been overwhelming, and I might have taken it out on our marriage. Stress, I repeated slowly. Yeah, stress can definitely make you question major things, like whether or not you still love your husband. She winced. I never said I didn't love you. No, I said, but you did say you weren't happy, and you needed to figure out what you wanted. Those are pretty serious concerns, I said as I poured my coffee and headed for the door. And I doubt a few counseling sessions are going to fix them. I paused, then added, actually, after having a couple of days to think, maybe this break is exactly what we needed. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? I mean, I've realized how much energy I was putting into trying to make someone else happy. Someone who didn't seem happy no matter what I did. It's kind of refreshing to focus on myself for once. Her mouth fell open slightly. You're saying you like being on a break? I'm saying it's teaching me a lot about who I am and what I will and won't accept in a relationship. That afternoon, she called me at work. That alone was rare. Can we have dinner together tonight? She asked, just to talk. I don't know if that's a good idea, I replied. You said you needed space to think clearly. Spending time together might just cloud things. Please. Just dinner. I let out a long breath. All right, but only if you're sure it won't interfere with your decision-making process. At dinner, she tried every angle she could to walk back her fake breakup, without admitting it was fake. I think I may have been a little dramatic on Saturday, she said, twirling her fork. Maybe I don't need a full break. Maybe just a few changes. What kind of changes? I asked, calmly cutting into my steak. I don't know. More date nights? Weekend getaways? Ways to reconnect? Those all sound like things we could have done before you said you were unhappy in our marriage. So what's different now? She froze. Her logic had turned against her. If she said she wasn't really unhappy, she'd have to explain why she faked it. I guess I had to almost lose something to realize how much it meant to me, she said softly. I set down my fork and looked her in the eye. But you haven't lost anything. We're still married. We're just on a break while you decide whether you want to stay married. Maybe I don't need the full month after all. Are you sure? I asked. Because changing your mind on something this important probably deserves more thought. Her frustration started to show. You're being deliberately difficult. I'm being supportive, I said evenly. You told me you needed space. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. By Wednesday, she changed tactics again. I think maybe the problem isn't our marriage, she said, but how little quality time we spend together because of work and everything else. That could be true, I said, but you also said you weren't sure if you wanted to spend the rest of your life with me. That feels bigger than just poor scheduling. I was just overwhelmed, she replied quickly. I didn't mean it literally. Oh, so when you said you needed space to decide if you still wanted to be married to me, that was metaphorical? She opened her mouth, then shut it again. There was no good way out of that one. By Thursday night, she tried again, this time going all in. What if I told you I made a mistake? She asked, standing in the doorway of the guest room. What if I said I don't want the break anymore? I looked up from the book I was reading. Then I'd say you need to be really sure about that. What do you mean? I mean, you've already shown me that when things get tough, your first move is to question our entire marriage. How do I know you won't do it again the next time life gets stressful? She stared at me, realizing I was turning her fake test into a real conversation about trust and commitment. You're punishing me. No, I said quietly. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. Friday morning, I overheard her on the phone with her friends again. This time, her tone was completely different. This isn't working, she whispered. He's not fighting for me. He's acting like he's actually relieved we're separated. One of them responded, maybe you need to tell him you're thinking about divorce. That'll definitely get a reaction. I smiled to myself. They were really about to push their little game to the edge, and that's when I knew it was time to show them exactly who they were dealing with. Sure enough, Friday evening, she sat me down at the kitchen table with the most serious look I'd seen all week. I've been thinking during this break, she began, and I'm wondering if maybe we should consider making this separation permanent.
This is where the story stops being about arguments. It becomes about trust. Because when you find out that all this time you were just being played, it changes everything. Your whole life.
I nodded slowly, as if taking a moment to really process her words. Like a divorce? I said. If we're both happier apart, maybe that's the right move. Her eyes went wide, like I'd hit her with cold water. You think so too? I've been thinking the same thing, I said. This week has really made me realize what I want in a partner, and honestly, maybe we're just not compatible long term. It hit her like a punch. That was supposed to be her trump card, the move that would make me beg her to stay. Instead, I agreed. You You want a divorce? I want to be with someone who's sure they want to be with me, I said simply. And you've made it pretty clear. That's not you. The test was crashing and burning, and we both knew it. Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after her big performance, she was pacing around the kitchen like a nervous wreck. Meanwhile, I was calmly eating breakfast, reading the news on my tablet like nothing had changed. That's when she finally broke. Okay, stop. Just stop this whole thing. I looked up from my screen. Stop what? This act, this calm, I'm fine with everything routine you've been doing all week. I raised an eyebrow. I'm not sure what you mean. You asked for a break. Then you suggested a possible divorce. I'm giving you the space you said you needed. She slammed her coffee mug down. No, you're not. You're supposed to fight for us. You're supposed to care that your wife might leave you. But my wife isn't leaving me, I replied calmly. My wife is making a thoughtful decision about whether she wants to stay married, and I respect that. There is no decision, she snapped. God, you're being so frustrating. I set the tablet down and looked at her, genuinely curious. Help me understand something, I said. Are you angry because I'm not fighting for our marriage, or because I'm respecting the choices you said you needed to make? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The trap was too perfect. She saw it. I'm angry because… You don't seem to care, she finally said. Not about me, not about losing me. I stood and walked around the kitchen island until we were face to face. Here's what I do care about, I said. I care about being with someone who wants to be with me. I care about having a partner who doesn't need to threaten our relationship just to feel secure. And I care about not wasting my time on someone who can't say whether she loves me. Her face went pale. I never said I didn't love you. No, I said. But you did say you weren't sure if you wanted to spend your life with me. And after this week, I think I'm starting to understand why. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned back slightly, arms crossed. It means I've learned something important about you. When life gets hard, your first instinct isn't to communicate or work through it. Your instinct is to create drama, to shake the foundation of our marriage. That's not fair, she whispered. Isn't it? I asked. You told me you wanted to separate, to figure out if you still wanted to be with me. That's not communication. That's manipulation. Her eyes went wide. The word landed exactly how I meant it to. I wasn't manipulating you. Really? I asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like you created a crisis just to get reassurance. You wanted me to prove something. That's the definition of manipulation. She started to panic. You're twisting everything around. Am I? I asked. Let me ask you something directly. I held her gaze. Do you actually want a divorce? No. Do you actually want to separate? No. Were you truly unhappy in our marriage? She hesitated, just long enough for the truth to show through. Things weren't perfect, she said finally. But were you genuinely thinking about leaving me last Saturday? Another pause. I was confused. I nodded slowly. Confused about what, exactly? About whether you really appreciated me, she said quietly. So your solution was to threaten our marriage to find out? I didn't threaten anything, she snapped. I just said I needed space to figure out if you wanted to spend your life with me. I raised an eyebrow. Most people would call that a threat. She was backing herself into a corner, and she knew it. You're making it sound worse than it was. Then how should it sound? I asked calmly. Because from where I'm standing, my wife told me she was unhappy and wanted to separate. I'm not sure there's a good way to spin that. Her phone buzzed on the counter between us. She glanced at it automatically, and I saw the flicker in her expression. Your friends checking in? I asked, wondering how the test is going. Her face drained of color. What? What test? The one where you fake a breakup to see how much I'll fight for you. How's that working out? Her mouth dropped open. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? I said flatly. Because I heard everything.
It's important to understand this one thing here. Self-respect is not the same as being cold. This is the moment when a person realizes that they don't have to prove their worth by being humiliated.
Last Thursday, you were on speakerphone with your friends, planning it out like some kind of relationship experiment. She stumbled backward like I'd physically struck her. You heard that? Every word, I said. The fake drama, the instructions on what to say, the part where they told you to document everything, like I was part of some game. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't finished. So let me ask you again. Were you actually unhappy in our marriage? Or were you running a psychological experiment on me for your friend's amusement? It wasn't like that, she whispered. Then what was it like? They said it would help me understand how you really felt about me. I let out a bitter laugh. And what did you learn? Do you know how I feel now? I don't know anymore, she admitted. Well, let me make it clear, I said. I feel like I've been married to someone who'd rather play games than communicate. I feel like you trust your friends' opinions more than your husband's, and I feel like I've been tested over and over for a full week by the person who swore she loved me. She was crying now, full-blown sobs, but I wasn't stopping there. And the worst part? It's not just that you did it. It's that when it didn't go the way you wanted, you escalated. You threatened divorce just to try and shake me. You were willing to blow up our marriage for a reaction. I'm sorry, she cried. I'm so sorry. I know it was wrong. Do you? Because instead of owning up to it, you doubled down. You lied every single day this week. You had so many chances to stop. I didn't know how to fix it. You could have told the truth at any point, I said. Instead, you just kept digging the hole deeper. She broke down completely then. But I stayed steady. I had waited a week for this conversation, and I wasn't about to let tears change the ending. Here's what's going to happen now, I said calmly. You're going to call your friends. You're going to tell them exactly how their little test worked out. You're going to tell them how their advice nearly destroyed your marriage. And then, I paused, locking eyes with her. You're going to decide. Do you want to be married to me, or do you want their approval more than your relationship? I choose you, she whispered. I choose our marriage. That's easy to say now, but you already chose their game over us once. Why should I believe anything's changed? She had no answer. The test was over, but the fallout was just beginning. That evening, I saw an opportunity, the perfect way to close the loop. Her friends were hosting their monthly dinner party. We'd both been invited. Normally, I would have passed, but these weren't normal times. We should probably skip tonight, my wife said quietly while getting ready. After everything that's happened. Actually, I said, adjusting my collar in the mirror, I think we should go. She froze. What? Why? I've got a few things I'd like to talk over, with your friends. Her face went pale. What kind of things? Oh, you know, I said casually. Just how their brilliant relationship advice worked out for us. By the time we arrived, the dinner party was in full swing. Her 3 friends, the masterminds of this entire mess, were already there, chatting with other couples like nothing was wrong. Perfect. My wife tried to steer us toward a quiet corner when we got to the dinner party, but I had other plans. Ladies, I said, walking directly up to her 3 friends. Just wanted to thank you for your excellent marriage counseling last week. They exchanged uneasy glances. What marriage counseling? one of them asked, trying to sound innocent. You know, I said, smiling, the phone consultation where you coached my wife into faking a breakup with me to test my devotion. A hush began to ripple through the room. Not sure what you mean, another friend mumbled, though her voice was already trembling. Really? I said. Because I heard every word of your little session. The part about telling her to act like she was unhappy. The idea to document my reaction for drama. And let's not forget the suggestion to escalate to divorce if I didn't respond the way you wanted. The entire room was going quiet now. Conversations were dying down. My wife looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. And the best part? I added, loud enough for everyone to hear. She actually went through with it, told me she needed space, wanted to separate, all based on your advice. And when I didn't react the way you predicted, she panicked. A man nearby let out a low whistle. You told her to fake a breakup? It wasn't fake, one of the friends protested weakly. We just thought she should test his commitment. I laughed. By lying to me, manipulating me, that's your idea of relationship guidance? Every relationship needs testing, she snapped. Oh yeah? I turned to her husband. Does yours? Did your wife ever test your commitment by pretending she might leave you for fun? Her husband looked at her, eyebrows raised. Did you? Silence. My wife tried to catch my eye, signaling me to stop. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Here's what I've learned about tests, I announced. When someone tests you, they're telling you they don't trust you. When they manipulate you, they're showing they don't respect you. And when they lie to your face for an entire week, they're showing you exactly who they are. That's not fair, one of them said. We were just trying to help her feel more secure. By teaching her to lie and play games, I asked. That's your version of security? Another husband chimed in. Wait, so the whole thing was fake? The separation, the talk about divorce, all of it? I nodded. Completely fabricated. A one-week psychological experiment designed by these three experts. The friends were starting to squirm. You're making it sound worse than it was. Am I? I shot back. Because my wife lied to me, threatened to end our marriage, and pushed me toward divorce. All for a reaction. Because you thought it would be fun to toy with her husband's emotions. The room broke into murmurs. I saw wives giving those three women disgusted looks. Husbands were staring with suspicion and concern. Maybe we should go, my wife whispered urgently. Why? I replied. We're just getting to the good part. I turned back to the crowd. So here's how the test worked out. When my wife said she wanted space, I gave it to her. When she said we should separate, I agreed. When she mentioned divorce, I told her it might be for the best. You could have heard a pin drop. Turns out, when you call someone's bluff, they panic. Funny how that works. One of the friends made a last-ditch effort. We were just trying to help her see her worth. I locked eyes with her. Her worth isn't measured by how desperately I react to manipulation. Her worth comes from being honest, respectful, and trustworthy, which is everything your advice went against. That was the final nail. The party might as well have ended right then. People were quietly gathering their things. Conversations stopped. And those three women? They were being completely ignored. As we walked to the car, my wife stayed quiet until we were both inside. Did you really have to humiliate them like that? She finally asked. I started the engine and looked over at her, my voice steady. They humiliated themselves. I just made sure everyone knew who was really behind the mess in our marriage. The message couldn't have been clearer. Actions have consequences. And her friends had just learned what happens when you interfere with someone else's relationship. The drive home was silent, not tense, just heavy. When we pulled into the driveway, she stayed in the passenger seat, staring down at her hands. I know you're angry, she said softly. Angry doesn't even begin to cover it, I replied, turning off the ignition. But now, we need to talk about what happens next. Inside, I sat down at the kitchen table and gestured for her to join me. This was the moment everything would shift, for better or worse. Your friends won't be calling you anymore, I said flatly. After what happened tonight, they're probably already blaming you for how bad they looked, because people like that don't take responsibility for the damage they cause. She nodded slowly. I know. Good, I said, because that tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. I leaned in, locking eyes with her. Here's where we stand. You chose to prioritize their entertainment over our marriage. You lied to me for an entire week. You escalated fake drama into real emotional threats. And when I didn't react the way you hoped, you doubled down instead of admitting the truth. Her tears returned, but I kept going. So now, you get to make another choice. The most important one of your life. What choice? She asked quietly. You can choose to rebuild this marriage on honesty and respect. That means cutting those toxic friendships out of your life completely. No more girls' nights. No more advice calls. No more letting them poison your thinking with their manipulative games. She was listening closely now, hanging on every word. Or, I said, you can choose to keep those friendships and lose this marriage, because I will never again allow myself to be tested, manipulated, or disrespected. Not by you, and not by them. I choose you, she said quickly. I choose our marriage. You said that yesterday, I reminded her. But choosing me isn't just something you say, it's something you show. That means proving you understand what went wrong, and why it can never happen again. How do I prove that? She asked. I'd been planning this all week. First, tomorrow, you're going to call each of those 3 friends and tell them you're ending those friendships. You're going to explain that their advice nearly destroyed your marriage and that you take full responsibility for following it. Her eyes widened. All 3 of them? All 3, I confirmed. And I'll be there to hear it. I need to know you actually did it. Okay, she whispered. Second, we're going to real marriage counseling. Professional help, not the amateur psychology your friends pushed on you. Because you need to understand why you ever thought it was okay to manipulate someone you love. She nodded quickly. Yes, absolutely. And third, I continued, you're going to rebuild my trust, not with promises, but with actions. That means full transparency. Where you go, who you talk to, what kind of relationship advice you're hearing. No more secrets. For how long? She asked quietly. I looked her straight in the eyes. For as long as it takes. For me to believe that you've truly learned from this. She sat silently, thinking it over. And if I do all of that, she asked carefully, will you forgive me? Forgiveness isn't something you earn by checking boxes, I replied. It happens when I see real, lasting change, not just regret, growth. I stood up from the table. But I will say this, the fact that you're willing to cut ties with them, that tells me you might actually understand just how serious this is. I do, she said, tears brimming. I really do. We'll see, I said, because understanding something in your head is one thing. Changing your behavior long-term, that's something else entirely. Over the next few days, she followed through on everything I'd asked. The phone calls to her friends were awkward, painful even, but she made them. I listened as she explained, calmly and clearly, that their advice had nearly destroyed her marriage. She didn't blame them. She didn't make excuses. She took ownership. She found a licensed marriage counselor and scheduled our first session. No stalling, no prodding. She even went a step further and deleted their numbers from her phone, without me asking. But the real test came 2 weeks later. One of those friends reached out. She sent a message trying to smooth things over, claiming the whole dinner party misunderstood her intentions. It was classic damage control. My wife showed me the text and asked, "What do you think I should do?" I didn't give her the answer. "What do you think you should do?" She looked at the screen, then back at me. I think someone who tries to save face instead of taking responsibility hasn't learned anything. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. That's exactly right. She blocked the number without a second thought.
6 months later, our marriage was stronger than it had been in years. Not because we simply survived a crisis, but because we rebuilt it on a new foundation. We set real, clear boundaries about what we would and would not accept from each other. My wife realized that true security in a relationship doesn't come from tests or games. It comes from honest conversations, mutual respect, and the courage to speak up without trying to provoke a reaction. And I learned something too. Sometimes the most powerful way to fight for your marriage is to refuse to play the games that weaken it. The difficult test has finally come to an end, but the profound lesson will remain with us forever, because some boundaries, once they have been crossed, will inevitably change everything we know. The main thing is to make sure they change everything for the absolute better of everyone involved. Sometimes stories can be too harsh, but you have to find a way out. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening to this story. I look forward to seeing you again in the next exciting stories very soon.